Добрый день. Меня зовут Юлия Тризна, я представляю издательство «Поляндрия». И рада сообщить, что сейчас у вас будет встреча с канадскими писателями и художниками, братьями Фэн. Это 3 брата, которые рисуют, придумывают, иллюстрируют книги. Сначала покажу вам книги, которые выходили у нас раньше. «Ночной садовник», «Рогатый корабль» и книга «Там, где океан встречается с небом». Но самое главное, братья расскажут про совершенно новую книгу, которая только что появилась, проект «Барнабус». И что важно сказать, происходит все это во время фестиваля «Кряк», на который обычно мы ездим каждый год. В этом году, к сожалению, мы встречаемся с вами только вот так онлайн. Но надеемся, потом все наладится, и мы снова полетим на самолете к вам и увидимся все в реальности. Что важно сказать про братьев Фэн? Они будут рассказывать по-английски, поскольку живут они в Канаде. Они записали для нас с вами специальную презентацию, где, прошу обратить внимание, заставки они по-русски написали абсолютно сами, самостоятельно. Но разговаривать они все равно будут на английском языке, и внизу вы можете прочитать субтитры русские. И просьба ко взрослым помогать детям читать субтитры. Первая часть – это будет презентация, которую подготовили братья. Она рассказывает о том, как они работают все вместе, кто является прототипом. Оказывается, у главного героя этой книги «Ночной садовник» есть реальный прототип. Это очень интересная, трогательная история. Не пропустите. А что важно, во второй части будет настоящий мастер-класс, поэтому приготовьте, пожалуйста, лист бумаги и карандаш, потому что Эрик Фэн, один из братьев, покажет вам, как можно нарисовать одного из персонажей книги в проект «Барнабус». И сразу хорошую новость. Всем участникам фестиваля «Кряк» мы подготовили специальную скидку по промокоду «Кряк 2020». Но про все это написано на наших страничках. Хорошего вам мастер-класса. Слушайте.
Hi, everyone. We're the Fan Brothers. I'm Eric.
My name's Terry.
And I'm Devin.
So we made a little presentation for you today about how we make books, how we work together, and a little bit about our process. So you'll find out how we turn this
into this.
So stay tuned for that. We hope you enjoy the presentation, and thank you all so much for tuning in.
Thanks for joining us, guys.
Thanks so much, everyone. We really hope you enjoy the presentation.
Hi, everyone. My name's Eric Fan. I'm an author-illustrator of picture books and with my brother, and these are some of the books we've worked on. The Night Gardener was our first book, and that was followed by Ocean Meets Sky, and then we illustrated some books for other authors. There was The Darkest Dark by Chris Hadfield, The Antlered Ship by Dashka Slater, and The Scarecrow by Beth Ferry. And our latest book is called The Barnabus Project, and it's actually the first book that Terry and I have worked on with our other brother, Devin. So we're very excited about that. It's the first book we've done with all 3 of us. And today I want to talk a little bit about how we make picture books, what inspires us, how we work together. And I apologize, my voice is a little hoarse because I've been sick, but hopefully it'll hold out through this. So I mentioned in my draw-along video, this is a book that Terry and I made when we were kids. We were about 4 or 5 years old. It was called Many Years Ago, and it was about dinosaurs. And our mom helped us write out the text and put the book together, which by some miracle we still have after all these years. And I guess I wanted to show you this book just to inspire you that you're never too young to make your own book. If you have an idea for a book or you like to draw, This is how Terry and I got our start making books together, and we're still making books today. So it tells the story of the dinosaurs and how the dinosaurs died off. And the last spread of the book is the dinosaurs as we see them today in the museum. And so that's kind of another lesson when you're thinking of your story. It's always good to keep in mind what the beginning, middle, and end of the story of every story sort of has three parts: a beginning, middle, and end. So Terry and I and Devin, we all went to OCAD University in Toronto. That's the Ontario College of Art and Design. And before Terry and I got into picture books, we were doing illustration. And here's just some illustration we had done before we got into picture books, which is actually how our agent found us. She saw our work online and approached us about making a picture book. And so she asked us if we had any ideas for picture books. And so we actually went back and looked at illustrations we had done together before. This was one of them called Autumn Chameleons. And you can kind of see the connection between this drawing and The Night Gardener. We had started drawing trees shaped like animals. And this was actually a t-shirt design Terry and I did called The Night Gardener, and that ended up being the inspiration for the book. And sometimes you do an illustration and there seems to be a story behind it. And sometimes a drawing can ask questions. Like for this one, it was, who is the night gardener? Why is he working at night? And why is he shaping a tree into an owl? And as you go through the process of answering all those questions, your story develops. And that's sort of how we ended up with The Night Gardener. And so for our next book, we looked at illustrations we had done before too. This is a drawing that Terry did years ago called Ocean Meets Sky. And something about the image of the whale floating in the clouds, we thought there might be a story there. And that actually ended up being our second book, Ocean Meets Sky. And now this is a drawing that Devin did. He did it 25 or 30 years ago, so a long time ago. There was a little character he drew called Barnabus, who was half mouse, half elephant, and he had been made in a secret lab. And just like with our other books, we thought there was a story behind this image, but for many years, that idea hibernated until we finally made a book out of it. And actually, I lost this drawing, and very recently I went to try to find it, and I looked through my entire apartment and spent days looking for it. And then I finally found it when I was cleaning out my storage locker, and this little drawing was at the bottom of a stock pot, of all places. But that drawing ended up being our book, The Barnabus Project. So another place inspiration comes from is the places you visit, and even your own neighborhood or your own backyard. It can be inspired by a place. And this is our ancestral home in Taiwan, where my dad lives now. He was born there and then retired back, but we've visited him many times. And you can see that the property has these beautiful trees. And I think that place was one of the things that inspired The Night Gardener. And our dad himself, he became the inspiration for the Night Gardener character. He's always loved trees and bonsai, and so he's kind of the original Night Gardener. And my nephew Ronan was the inspiration for the character of William in The Night Gardener. And this is a picture of my dad and my other nephew Valentine, and they were sort of the inspiration for the two characters in Ocean Meets Sky, along with our grandfather. And that's a picture of my grandfather, and then a drawing that Terry and I did of the character in The Night Gardener on the right there. So every book starts with sketches before you start working on the final book. We do a lot of sketches. Here are some early sketches for The Night Gardener. And when you're doing sketches, you're trying to find your way into the story, into the characters. You're looking for mood. At this point, sometimes the story can even change a little bit. You can see the drawings on the left there. Originally, there were two characters, a brother and a sister, in The Night Gardener, and then we eventually just made it one character. And here's some mood sketches of Grimlock Lane. And here's an early concept sketch of from The Antlered Ship, showing the fox characters and Marco. And this is an example of how a book can change from the sketch phase to the final book. We had originally made the foxes wearing clothes, and they're more anthropomorphic. And our agent ended up suggesting that we make them just more naturalistic animals. So in the final book, Marco is more like a real fox, and this is a spread from The Antlered Ship. And so here's some sketchbooks for when we were working on developing the Barnabus project. On the left are some drawings from Devin's sketchbook of Barnabus, and then there's some little sketches of his friends, the failed projects in the book. And so every book starts this way with sketches. And you can see how the book develops. This is a concept drawing from Ocean Meets Sky, and that's another example of how things can change. We originally had Finn's boat as a bathtub, and then our art director suggested maybe making his boat something he builds out of little scrap and junk that he finds. So here's some sketches we did, and we eventually sort of honed in on the final design for the boat as it appears in the book. And here's just some sketches of the Antlered Ship, and some final art from the book. And the same thing applies for when we're doing the cover art. There's a rough sketch on the left, and the final cover on the right. But we did a lot of sketches, just trying to find the right composition, the right image for the book. And once you have a sketch that's approved, then you work on the final. And so after you've done your sketches, you do what's called a rough dummy of the book. And that's the whole book, the story, as it's going to be laid out on the pages. And the stories, even at this point, the story was a little bit different than it ended up being in the final book, but you can see that a lot of it was carried through to the final book. And so this is an early dummy sketch for the park scene, and then that's the final art as it appears in the book. And this was from the dummy of Ocean Meets Sky, the Library Islands, and that's the final. So you can still see that even when you have the dummy, that a lot can change when you go to the final art. And here's some sketches from the Barnabus project. You can see the dummy sketches on the top, and then the final art is on the bottom. So final art, we tend to work on in pencil, although we've been moving more towards drawing digitally as well. But for a lot of our books, we still draw in pencil on paper, and then we scan those drawings and we color them in Photoshop digitally. And here's Terry and I working. Sometimes we work on the same drawing together. And with the Barnabus project, it's the three of us. But more often, we are drawing separate drawings and then combining them in Photoshop. So we will draw individual elements, and then the final image is a composite of those different drawings, which I'll show you a little bit later, how that sort of works. And here's some final art from the Barnabus project. So here's the original pencil drawing of the cat tree from the Night Gardener. And that's scanned, and this is what it looks like when it's colored in Photoshop. So here's a dummy sketch, again from the Night Gardener, of the dragon tree. And these are all the little different elements that Terry and I will draw separately. And the tree is drawn separately. So that's the pencil. And when it's colored in Photoshop, and then layer by layer, we will add in the other elements. And we keep all those elements on their own layer in case we want to take something out or move a character somewhere. And here's another example from the Darkest Dark, and you can see that everything is on its own layer. And then the final coloring. And for the cover, it's the same. This is the cover of Ocean Meets Sky, and all the little elements are drawn separately and then put together in Photoshop. Until we get the final cover image. And like I said, if we need to move something, you can always move an element. And that sort of makes it handy if you need to move something. And so I'll just give one more example of how we build up an illustration in Photoshop, because that's really where a lot of our, about 50-50 between doing the drawing and doing the final art in Photoshop. So these are all drawn elements that are built up layer by layer. Until we get the final image. So I hope you enjoyed that, seeing our process a bit. This is really the most enjoyable part for us, is when the book is published and just seeing kids all around the world enjoying our book. So we hope you seek out our books. They're available in bookstores everywhere. And thank you all for listening today. And I thought I would leave you just with this is a little video of my dad and on his property in Taiwan. So a little glimpse of the real Night Gardener. And so thank you all. Thanks very much. Hi everyone. My name's Eric Fэн. I'm an author, illustrator of picture books. This was my first book, which was called The Night Gardener. And I did that with my brother Terry. We're the Fan brothers. And the next book we did together was called Ocean Meets Sky. And our latest book, called The Barnabus Project, is actually the first book we've done with our brother Devin. And so that's the three of us worked on this book together. And Barnabus is about a little character who's half mouse, half elephant. And he lives below a pet store called Perfect Pets, where they make genetically engineered animals as pets. And they make them in this secret lab that's below the pet store. And that's where Barnabus lives. But because Barnabus isn't quite perfect, he's been put in a part of the lab called failed projects. So Barnabus is there with his other little friends who are also failed projects. And so I was going to do a little drawing tutorial, a draw along. Today I'm going to show you how to draw a couple of these little characters, if you want to draw along with that. And before I get started, I just wanted to share with you this book. And this is actually the first book that Terry and I ever did together. And we did it when we were little kids. We were about 4 or 5 years old. And it was called Many Years Ago. And it was a book about dinosaurs, which we were both kind of obsessed with at that age. Still kind of obsessed with dinosaurs. And our mom helped us write out the text and put the book together, which by some miracle we still have after all these years. And I guess the reason I wanted to share this with you is just to inspire you that you're never too young to make a book. You know, if you have a story idea or a story you want to tell, there's nothing to stop you from making your own picture book. And this is how Terry and I started, and we're still making books today. So yeah, I still like this book. It tells the story of dinosaurs and the end of the dinosaurs. And then the very end of the book, we see dinosaurs as we see them today in museums. So yeah, I hope that's inspires you. So we'll get started on the draw along. If you want to grab a sheet of paper, pencil and pen, or whatever you like drawing with, and we'll get started. Okay, thanks. Hi everyone, it's Eric Fэн here. I am the co-creator of the Barnabus project with my brothers Terry and Devin. It's our latest picture book. It's about a little character called Barnabus. He's half mouse, half elephant. And he lives under a pet store called Perfect Pets, where they make genetically engineered animals. And he lives in a secret lab. And with all his little friends who are failed projects who didn't quite live up to being perfect pets. So today I'm going to do a little draw along to just draw some of the characters. So I'm using just a black pencil crayon, but you can use whatever you want, pencil, pen. I thought I'd start with someone kind of simple. So this is a character called Stick One, and basically you can draw him just by starting with a circle. Doesn't have to be perfect, but so that's a circle. And since he's three-dimensional, it's actually a sphere. So when the light hits a sphere, it's light on one side, and then you're going to get a shadow on one side, like a ball. So you see, and the shadow is curved too, so it's not like it's just kind of like, so you see how that sort of makes it look like a round shape, like a ball. So once you've got that, he's also since he's a bird, he's got a long kind of beak. And just a simple and when you're drawing it, you actually want to overlap the circle there, so it comes over the line there, and that's where his beak sort of starts. And he's got two little eyes, which are just basically dots, like that. So that's his basic body shape, and then he's got these two legs. Again, that's going to overlap the circle a little bit, but you can draw some guidelines, just two straight lines. And they're about that long. And then make a little line here, that's where his knees are, right in the middle of that line. And his knees are a little bit thicker than the rest of his leg. So we'll draw two lines just to indicate where his knees are. And then you see how they're not perfectly straight. I'm going to round them out a bit, kind of like an oval shape. And then his thinner, the rest of his legs are just these thin kind of sticks, hence his name. Just kind of like that. And actually this leg can actually go behind because it's this one in front a bit. And then his feet, sometimes it helps to draw a little guide for his feet, just these shapes like that. I find when you're drawing, it's always good to start with simple shapes. And he's got 3 toes, so we can just, once you have this shape, you can just divide it into his toes. That kind of. And now we're going to add his wing. Again, you can sort of just draw a triangle here, kind of where his wing's going to be. And then it's curved here, like a little shoulder kind of. And then we're just going to divide, put some lines there, divide. That's going to be the feathers on the wing, which has got sort of a couple rows of little feathers on the wing. And now we're going to go, instead of having it perfectly circular the way it is now, since he's got little feathers, we're just going to break up that line just with this, kind of like the edge of a saw. And those are going to be the little feathers that he's got. Just kind of on the right side, on this side of the circle, we're going to break that up. And wherever his body's in shadow, that's where you can add some more feathers. And as you get towards the light part of it, you just, we won't see them as much. So we'll kind of fade out the feathers. And then his body's going to kind of cast a little shadow on the legs. So just where the legs are close to the body, we're going to darken it a little bit. And the last thing is his legs are banded. So he's got, just all you have to do is just draw these little lines, equal distant, right all the way down his legs. Just like that. And when you get to his feet, we're just going to do them in the same direction as his feet are going. So the lines are going to be just kind of like that. And a couple on his toes. And if you want, you can also add a shadow, just not under his feet, between his feet. And on the, since the light's coming this way, the shadow is going to be on this side as well, just like his body. So I'll just give him a little shadow as he's standing on the ground. And what we would do, normally we would take a pencil drawing like this and we'd scan it. And then we'd bring it into a program called Photoshop that lets us color it. But since this is on paper, I have these little brush pens. I don't know if you can see inside, but it's got a little reservoir at the back, which I probably should have filled up, but it's got some water in it. And that just means when you're working, maybe you're sketching outside, it lets you just, you don't have to bring water with you, basically. So it's kind of handy, it's kind of fun. So he's like a bright canary yellow. And it's really not that different than how we would color it in Photoshop. It's just in Photoshop it would be digital instead of paint. So that's all his feathers. And like I said before, since he's round, you can make a little darker color, and just on the side of that's darker, you can add a little bit of darker orange. And his feet, his legs are this kind of pink. Just like that. That is stick one, and I would since, like I said, the little perfect pets in the Barnabus project they're combinations of animals. So Barnabus is half mouse, half elephant. But I'd encourage you to sort of have fun and maybe try your own perfect pet. I don't know what your favorite animals are, but you can combine them and invent your own little creature. And actually, if you're on Instagram, I think it'll be fun to if you do your own drawing, I'm going to follow #perfectpet. I'd love to see what you guys come up with as far as your little creature. So yeah, I think that would be fun. I don't know if I have time. I'll try another quick one of maybe Barnabus. So again, like when you're drawing, I don't know if this is going to work, but we start with simple shapes. So Barnabas's head, kind of a shape like an egg maybe, and his body is kind of a little more rounded in the front, and his back is a little more straight. So kind of like that. He's got a trunk like an elephant, which is basically just a shape like that. And then at the end of it, if you've ever seen an elephant, it's got a little shape like that. So I guess so you can grab stuff. And his mouth is just another little shape like that. And his eyes, very simple, just a little dot like that. And then he's got these mouse ears, which are something like that. And his mouse tail, which starts a little thicker and then gets thin right down to a point. And then we've got his legs. Just draw little rectangles. You're going to draw one, again simple shapes, and then his other leg will be like that, and it's going to be higher up on this side because he's standing, and his foot gets a little bigger on the bottom, and you can add his little elephant nails, which are just little semicircles, and it's got little knees just like that. And his little hand is, again, it's a little elephant. So we're going to make his hand sort of bent, arm bent here. And he's got little nails here, maybe some little wrinkles at his elbow. Shadow behind, standing there. Maybe make his ears a little fluffier. And just like with stick one, we're going to make him a little darker on one side and lighter on the other side. His trunk, it's got these little wrinkles. So yeah, it's not a perfect drawing, but you know, when you're sketching, not always going to get get a perfect drawing, but that's okay too. Not looking for perfection, we're just practicing. And Barnabus is just gray like a mouse. Like a mouse, he's got a little bit of pink in his tail and in his ears. So here we have it. We can put some shadow on with the paint too, if you want. Just on one side of his body. Not gonna fuss with it too much, but so there you go. So hope you enjoyed that little drawing tutorial. I look forward to seeing your own little perfect pets or failed projects. And yeah, so thanks very much, and thanks to Moon Lane Books for inviting us to do this.
Ну что ж, надеюсь, все нарисовали своего Барнабуса. В общем-то, вы можете придумать любое животное, потому что идея этой книги в том, что никто не обязан быть идеальным в этом мире. Идея прекрасная. Эту книгу, а также разные другие, можно заказать на нашем сайте. И, как я уже говорила, всем участникам фестиваля «Кряк» скидка 15% при заказе на нашем сайте по промокоду «Кряк2020». Спасибо за внимание. Приходите на следующие встречи.